Broadcasting live from an undisclosed location. This is the TCMMA podcast with your host, Chris Cross.
Whoa!
Dana White privilege.
Let's go, baby! Let's go! Let's go! Let's go! Let's go, baby!
Dana White privilege. Privilege. Privilege.
What up? This your boy Chris Cross checking in. Yes, this is the TCMMA podcast. Now we got a big week ahead in Denver, Colorado, UFC Denver. Rose Namajunas takes on Tracy Cortez at the top of this card. But you got a bunch of other good fights on this card. You got Gabriel Bonfim fighting and a host of others. Abdul Razak Al Hassan, Julian Juicy J Arosa, Angelusa, Gene Silva, who just fought at UFC 303, is coming in fight 3 and taking on Drew Dober. So a bunch of good fights here coming up this week. And we're going to get into all of them, right? Preview some of them. Like the first fight of the night, Josh Fremd and Andre Petrosky, middleweight division fight. Pretty much a toss-up. I mean, both of these guys are capable of winning and losing, right? They win like 70% of the time, both. So that's why that's a toss-up. Then you got Montel Jackson taking on Damon Blackshear. I like that matchup, right? Bantamweight division fight. Jackson's a little bit of a favorite. Blackshear is pretty darn good, right? But Jackson's only lost two fights in 15. So he's a slight favorite. The Brazilian Luana Santos, 7-1. Still young in the game, right? Taking on Maria Agapova. And Santos, the Brazilian, is a nice favorite. Viviane Araújo taking on Jasmine Jasudavicius, women's flyweight division. Brazil versus Canada. I'm waiting to see the odds on this one, right? Because to me it's a toss-up, but we'll have to see. Right? Both can strike, both are good on the ground. Highly interesting fight. And then at the top of the prelims, you got Joshua Van versus Charles Johnson. It's a 10-1 Joshua Van, right? Against a 15-6 Charles Johnson. So, you know, the odds are going to favor Van in that one, you would think. So we'll have to see. But the prelims are looking stout. And then you get into the main card, you got some real good fights here. I mean, Abdul Razak Al Hassan, 12-6, takes on Cody Brundage. That's certainly going to be an interesting fight to see. I mean, that's one that can go either way, although Al Hassan's a slight favorite. Cody Brundage has KO power. Al Hassan is up and down in his fights, kind of a tough guy to figure out. So I definitely look forward to that one. Then you got Julian Arosa versus Christian Rodriguez. Featherweight division, that's going to be a banger for sure. But let's get into the first prediction of the night. We're going to look at the final 4 fights here in detail. We wanted to preview the rest of the card. But as we get into fight number 4, I mean, this is a banger, man. Gabriel Bonfim, Brazilian, 15-1, takes on Angelusa. Losa, right? One of the two. He comes in at 10-3. So let's look at this prediction right now. In the welterweight division at UFC Denver, you got Gabriel Bonfim, one of the Bonfim brothers. Impressive record. The Brazilian's 15-1, taking on Angelusa, who comes in at 10-3. Let's jump right into it. Bonfim, 3 inches taller at 6'1". He's 26, Lusa 31. So Lusa in the middle of his prime, Bonfim kind of entering that prime. Lusa 1-inch reach advantage. Both guys stand right-handed. Angelusa is very active, despite the 3 losses. 6.1 significant strikes per minute to 4.9 for Bonfim. But Bonfim dominates the ground. Nearly 2 takedowns per round. Angelusa can land like a takedown every round, maybe every other round as well. So keep an eye on the ground game here. Bonfim, 100% takedown defense, though. He lost to Nicholas Dalby by KO, right? Was looking good in that fight. Had 3 takedowns to none. Was controlling the fight on the ground a little bit, but Nicholas Dalby exploded on him and got the victory there. Before that, he beat Trevin Giles by submission, Munir Lazez by submission, and then beat Trey Waters at the Contender Series by submission. So he's very capable of winning. Now, Lusa had a no contest against Brian Battle, so you might as well wipe that one clean. Before that, he beat Rice McGee and A.J. Fletcher by decision. He lost to Munir Lazez and Jack Della Maddalena by decision. So when you compare the Lazez fight, Bonfim just submitted him in about 49 seconds, right? Lusa went the distance with him, and Lazez dominated 141 to 88 in significant strikes. So that just tells me that Bonfim's going to come in here and look to get a submission in this fight. Lusa's going to try to defend takedowns, which, again, he does 90% of the time. That's incredible. The Last Ninja is good at takedown defense. He's going to have to be here. If he can keep the fight standing, he's got a chance. But the Bonfim brothers have a way of breaking your takedown defense, so I'm going to lean towards Gabriel Bonfim to win this fight by decision, maybe third-round submission. But it's going to go for a little while, I believe. Either way, though, in my opinion, Bonfim wins with the 16-1 here. Welterweight division, UFC Denver. Yeah, I mean, so it's real simple. I'm not going against Gabriel Bonfim, the Brazilian, right? It's hard for me to go against Brazilians anyway. I just like Gabriel Bonfim. The guy is 15-1. I mean, Ange Losa, one of the two, right? Has an opportunity to win this fight, but I just think Bonfim is too good on the ground. And I think that's going to play out at some point in this fight. I mean, if Bonfim gets the KO, that would be crazy. But he's just too good on the ground, and I expect him to dominate there. Now, as you move into fight 3, it's a good one. Lightweight division, Drew Dober, 27-13, taking on Jean Silva, Brazilian, 13-2, just fought 2 weeks ago at UFC 303, and had the big KO over Charles Jourdain. So he's back quickly here, just 2 weeks later. Let's get into that one right now. In the lightweight division at UFC Denver, you got Drew Dober coming in at 27-13. And are we seeing this right? He's taking on Jean Silva, right? Or maybe Gene Silva, one of the two. He comes in at 13-2. And this is a big one because he's fighting in back-to-back UFC events. He just fought at UFC 303, won against Charles Jourdain in dominant fashion. And 2 weeks later, there was a break the previous week. 2 weeks later, he's taking on Drew Dober. So this is interesting. Dober 1 inch taller at 5'8". He's 35. Silva 27. Dober's got a 1 inch reach advantage. He stands left-handed. Silva stands right-handed. Silva very active so far. 5.8 significant strikes per minute to 4.3 for Dober. In terms of the takedown game, that also leans towards Silva at 1 takedown every other round. And Drew Dober doesn't have great takedown defense, just 56%. Look out. Right, he's coming off the loss to Renato Moicano by decision, beat Ricky Glenn by KO, and got KO'd by Matt Frivola. So he's struggling a little bit, losing 2 of the last 3. Now, Silva, 72% takedown defense. Just beat Charles Jourdain at UFC 303 by second round KO, so very quick turnaround. Right, will there be any weight cutting problems or, having to get down to 155 back to, 2 weeks later? That's always a question mark to me. But he did beat Charles Jourdain, who had 3 takedowns. Jourdain was in the fight, but he got KO'd. He also beat Weston Wilson and Kevin Vallejos at Dana White's Contender Series. So Drew Dober has a wealth of experience. Silva is riding high. I think this fight is even really in the odds because Silva has got to get back down to lightweight again. I don't know what his true weight is. Like if he walks around at 170 and he's got to maintain 155 for 2 back-to-back UFC events, that's going to be a problem. But listen, I like this guy. The guy is trending right now. He had a big win over Charles Jourdain, and Drew Dober's a different story, but I still think he wins this fight. The Brazilian is on top of his game right now, and he's 27 years old. He's entering the prime. So look for Silva to win this one. It's going to go a little longer. He's going to struggle a little bit in the second round, but he'll pick it up in the third and win rounds 1 and 3, in my opinion, to move to 14-2. He'll do it on control time. That's what Brazilians do to win fights. Lightweight division, UFC, Denver. Yep, that's what Brazilians do. They control the heck out of the fight when it comes down to winning. Of course, I'm a little nervous. I think that's why it's a toss-up fight too, is because Silva just fought 2 weeks ago. When when you're trying to cut weight, and I don't know how much weight he has to cut. Maybe it's not too bad, but when you got to cut weight, you know, closely like this, we've seen in the past that it doesn't necessarily favor you. So I think it's going to be a closer fight than it should be, and Drew Dober's good. But look for Jean Silva to win and move to 14-2 as stated. Now it only gets better as you head into the co-main event welterweight division. Ponzinibbio versus Salikov. Great fight. Pons is a veteran of the game, right? 30-7. So Salikov is 19-5. So he's going to be, wanting to get that 20th victory, just like Pons got his 30th victory. So both guys got something to fight for. Ponzinibbio, of course, is going to be the favorite in this fight. Good striker. Will have to defend takedowns. So let's just get into it right now. In the welterweight division at UFC Denver, you got two good fighters in Santiago Ponzinibbio. He's 30-7, taking on Muslim Salikov. He's 19-5. Ponzinibbio 1 inch taller at 6 feet. He's 37. Salikov 40. I didn't realize that. Wow. Ponzinibbio 3-inch reach advantage. Both guys stand right-handed. Ponzinibbio 4.9 significant strikes per minute to 3.4 for Salikov. Not looking good there. But Salikov can land takedowns, and he's going to need him in this fight. He lands like a takedown and a half over the course of 3 rounds, which equates to about 1 every other round. Ponzinibbio 60% takedown defense, so there's an avenue there for Salikov if he chooses to take it. Ponzinibbio lost to Kevin Holland by 3rd round KO. Beat Alex Morono, good fighter, by KO. Wow. And lost to Mikel Pereira and Jeff Neal. Now, Salikov, 73% takedown defense. That'll do just fine for this fight. Coming off back-to-back losses over Nicholas Dalby, decision, and KO'd by Randy Brown. He did beat Andre Fialho. So this one's easy. Gosh, and I'll tell you, throughout the year, the matchmakers have been impressive, but not here in the main event and co-main event. These are going to be easy victories. And in this one, I like Santiago Ponzinibbio. I mean, the guy's 30-7, right? And Salikov is 40. He better bring his A game and land a lot of takedowns, which he may land 1 or 2, but it's not going to be enough to beat Santiago Ponzinibbio. I like him to win this fight by decision to move to 31-7. He's going to dominate on the feet. Will win 2 out of 3 rounds in dominant fashion. He may give up some control time in another round, which gives up the round, but he'll win this fight. In my opinion, welterweight division, UFC, Denver. Yeah, so I get it. I mean, Muslim Salikov has something to fight for, trying to get the 20th victory, but again, I just don't see Ponzinibbio falling in this fight. He just seems too good to me at this point in time. It's on a big stage. He always has something to prove, and he's got 30 victories in the sport, so certainly a tough out. Look for him to win. Now, as you creep into the main event, right, as we tiptoe into this thing, you can't tiptoe, though, because you're dealing with Doug Rose. Rose Namajunas is going to bring the viewers, right? This isn't just another women's fight. This is Doug Rose. And in her last fight, she looked pretty darn good up a division in the women's flyweight division. So she's staying there now, right? She's 13-6, taking on the up-and-comer Tracy Cortez. She's 11-1, has a lot to prove. Big step up for Cortez, though, right? On the main stage, big step up in front of a crowd. Denver, Colorado. Place is going to be going crazy. A lot of people are going to be rooting for Doug Rose. But can Tracy Cortez come in here and pull the upset? I don't know. Let's get into it right now. In the women's flyweight division, your main event at UFC Denver, you got Rose Namajunas, a.k.a. Thug Rose, coming in at 13-6, taking on Tracy Cortez, who comes in at 11-1. Coming in, Doug Rose is more than a 2-1 favor, so keep that in mind. Both ladies stand 5'5". Rose, 32. Tracy Cortez, 30. So right in the middle of the prime. Both fighters 65-inch reach. Both fighters stand right-handed. Both fighters pretty active. Rose 3.7 significant strikes per minute to 4.1 for Cortez, so Cortez with a slight lead. And Cortez lands well over 2 takedowns over the course of 3 rounds. Rose gets like 1 every 3 rounds. Namajunas, 59% takedown defense. So the numbers aren't stacking up right now for Rose. But she's got a big, obviously a solid resume. So keep that in mind. That's why the numbers could be a little lower. She's coming off the win over Amanda Ribas by unanimous decision. Lost to Manon Fiorot by decision. And Carla Esparza split decision. And that Carla Esparza fight was one of the worst fights I've ever seen Doug Rose have. I mean, very inactive. 37 significant strikes in that fight. She also beat Zhang Weili twice, back-to-back, to capture and retain the women's strawweight belt. So that's where Rose has been. She's been all over the place and has fought the best fighters in the world. Now, Cortez, 75% takedown defense. She's basically perfect. She is perfect. Since entering the UFC, she's won 6 straight, if you count the Contender Series. But as of late, beat Jazuda Vicious by decision, Melissa Gatto decision, and split decision over Justine Kish. Here's the deal, ladies and gentlemen. You're talking about Thug Rose Namajunas. She's more than a 2-to-1 favorite. Should be more like a 4 or 5-to-1 favorite, in my opinion. I mean, she's going to absolutely dominate this fight. She's got way more experience than Cortez. The one thing you could say about Cortez is she does find ways to win, right? It's not her fault who she's fighting, but she's also not putting away her opponents. She wants to take the fight to a decision. So Doug Rose just has to be real aggressive here. I think she learned her lesson against Carla Esparza and has looked good since. She gets the win here, in my opinion, by finish, somewhere in the 2nd or 3rd round, likely by KO, to move to 14-6. Women's flyweight division, your main event at UFC Denver. And that's the key, right? I mean, just to stay aggressive. Rose Namajunas needs to pull out a big victory here, not a 5-round decision. She needs a big finish. It seems to me that it's kind of set up that way, although Tracy Cortez could surprise us. But it seems to me that it's set up for Doug Rose to get a big finish. And now you can start looking up a little bit at the top of the list and potentially start calling out some names. I mean, listen, when you have the name recognition of Rose Namajunas, it doesn't take much to start to propel you into a title fight, because we all know what she's capable of, and therefore a big finish could go a long way to help in that direction. And I think that's exactly what's going to happen. I think Rose Namajunas pulls out the big victory, UFC Denver. That's the bottom line. So that's the card. That's the entire card. It's going down. Again, at UFC Denver. It's going to be live. I love when it's in front of a crowd and not at the Apex. And it's heading more and more in that direction now at a quick pace. So it's a good thing. We get a live crowd. Can't wait. We'll be back later in the week with much more. But this is UFC Denver. Doug Rose Namajunas versus Tracy Cortez. Hope you all enjoyed it. This is your boy Chris Cross. Thanks for listening. Hope you have a great day. And God bless, as always,